Hi guys, this is Lesley Tao. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to talk about money management and more specifically how this method got me out of debt. So when I was in debt and desperately trying to get out of debt, firstly, I roadmapped my way out of it, okay? So there is a formula you can use, which is set a target, a goal, and also how you're gonna get there. So for example, in my case, let's say the debt amount was 50,000, how was I gonna pay off 50,000 pounds of debt over X amount of time? For me, I managed to do it in 12 months, but I'll tell you about how I did that in the sequel to this video, okay? But what I also did on a daily basis, and this was so helpful, is I did this. I call it my balance sheet, and I used to do it 3 times a day. I'd do it when I woke up in the morning, I'd look at it again in the afternoon, I'll look at it before I go to bed. But I didn't just look at it, I would every time have a piece of blank A4 paper and draw this up because I knew my numbers off by heart. When you're looking to overcome a problem, and we are talking about debt, you need to be fearless and stare at it in the eye and know your numbers, because numbers never lie. But there is a way that you can, map your way out of that problem. So this is what I used to do. So income is, for example, your salary income or whatever income you're getting in on a monthly basis. So in my case, it was around £4,000 a month. So £4,000, and E stands for expenses. Okay, let's just put the expenses down in red. So I didn't own my property in Dubai then, so this is before I started buying, but it would be my rent and let's say all my utility bills, which includes the water, the Wi-Fi, gas, electricity, any sort of like government taxes, that sort of thing. That would all go in. And next up would be any travel costs. So I had a car back then, a quite expensive one. So I'd be paying like a installment every month for that as well. So travel, I had a car. And by the way, everybody knows that. So stupidly, I got the car out on finance. So everybody knows that a car, if you buy it, is a depreciating asset. So it's not an asset, yeah? So I had that coming out every month. That was quite a bit of money. What else? I also had a credit card. And I'm just thinking, there was loads of other expenses anyway, like eating out, food, and also the debts. So with the debts, there'll be, the amounts will all be in there. So those were the expenses, okay? Very important, E. Don't know whether you can see that. So I'll have a figure for this. It was quite high, so like this has been quite a while ago now, so I'm just gonna make some figures up. So let's say my figures of my fixed expenses, including all the debts I had to pay back, let's say it was about £3,500, let's say a month, yeah? Which leaves me with £500. Now, PI and SA. So PI stands for your passive income. So when I started, I had 0. S and A stands for your savings or your assets. So, sorry, that's a money bag or a house, yeah? So when I started this journey, I had no passive income and no savings or assets, okay? So what I would do is do this every day, okay? And how did I get rid of the debt? So I would look at this every day and, basically I increase my income, which I will talk about in part 2, okay, of how I did that. I increased my income so I could pay off the debt faster. So I was able to pay this off, I think it was 10 to 12 months altogether, but it was really hard work because all the money was basically going through this massive expense channel. However, what it did was teach me consistency because I was doing this every day, so I knew my numbers like inside out, and that was quite fun. And what it meant was that I then developed a habit where I could start pushing myself into these two categories because I was able to lower the expenses after the debts are gone. But then I had like this money left over, right? Because reduced expenses, increased income. So I had more money to play with that I could put into, creating passive income. So for me, that was through rent to rent, okay? And also investment. So property investment, yeah. So I was increasing my numbers here, and then for savings and assets, I was able to put money in the bag, okay, to then go and finance assets, so purchases. This goes back to the investment, but this would never have happened had I not been visualizing and looking at it every day and really wanting to drive all my energy to getting rid of that debt, because it's the worst thing to have a lot of debt that firstly, that you didn't accrue, okay? That was a hard lesson learned. But we have to be thankful, because had that not happened, I would never have known how to set up my own system. And I'm hoping to share this with you guys so that you can learn from this as well. And I hope it helps you if you're in a situation like that. But literally, it is looking at your balance sheet every day, probably more than one time a day, so you are working towards your goal. Okay, so in part 2, guys, which is coming up, I'm going to talk a little bit more about how I was able to increase my income.